Hey guys, so today is the day that we are making the strawberry cake from scratch. This recipe is from my cake school. I will link it down below. This is the first time I'm making this recipe. It is for a birthday party that we are holding tomorrow, and a strawberry cake was requested, and then the birthday party theme is purple butterflies. So if you guys could see my house right now, there are purple and pink balloons and purple butterflies hanging from the ceiling. It's very pretty. But let's go ahead and get all our ingredients together, and then we'll start putting them together. All right, so here I'm just oiling the pans and flouring the pans, and I'm gonna use parchment paper. So I'm just oiling them, and I use avocado oil for this whole recipe. I like avocado oil because it is healthier and it also has a neutral or a mild flavor. And I'm using all-purpose flour to flour the pans. I am not using the cake flour, because the cake flour I obviously have less of, and that's the way that it looks when it's been oiled and floured. And I'm really glad that I did this step. I'm glad that I did both. I'm glad that I did the oil and flour as well as the parchment paper, and I think that they recommend that in the recipe. I do not remember whether I just made the executive decision to do that. I'm keeping this for later, and man, is that a foreshadowing, because I end up actually remaking this entire recipe. At this point, I'm blissfully unaware that the cake that I'm about to make is going to not be very yummy. So I don't know if you can tell how my facial expression and my just overall countenance is. At this point, I'm remaking the cake because the first one was not good. Do not use coconut sugar in this recipe. It will drastically change the look and the flavor and even the smell of your cake. So coconut sugar is a no-go unless you're really desperate. Like, it was still edible, but it was not very strawberry-y. And I actually ended up doubling the recipe, which presented its own set of challenges because my mixing bowl is not big enough. So at this point, I am just doing my best to get through it and just tell myself it will be worth it. The look on the little girl's face will be worth this moment right here. And it was wonderful. So here I'm just remixing everything up, following the recipe. The first time I talk you guys through it, and I had like 5 hours of footage, and I was not about to post a 5-hour YouTube video. So here I'm just pureeing more of the strawberry for the cake, as well as I actually use that a little bit later in the filling as well. Now I'm just adding the egg. So I'm just running through the recipe, and I will link that below. And I'm doubling it, so I have, double all of the ingredients on the recipe. This cake was delicious. I ended up layering it, which you guys are going to see, but I ended up layering it with the strawberry on the top and the chocolate on the bottom. Here I'm realizing that I do not have a big enough cup measure, so I end up getting out a big bowl because I wasn't about to waste the ingredients, and at this point I am just kind of over it. So I am saying, you know what, I will do the dishes afterwards, whatever makes this process the easiest and go by the smoothest I signed up for. So I'm just mixing this together, and I'm smelling it, and it smells so much better than the first batch. So I was feeling much better about it this time around. And the kitchen is a disaster. So I'm trying to clean it up a little bit and calm myself down, help myself to realize that I'm doing this to myself and this was totally my choice. And then it's gonna be okay. Just like I tell you guys, like it's gonna be okay. Just keep adding ingredients, keep mixing it up. It's gonna be delicious. The first time wasn't, but the second time around was.
There you go. 1.5 minute timer.
Here's me trying the first one. I was just like, ooh, that's strange. Also very hot, but strange. I was just like, I am not going to cover that in icing and feed it to people. So I was very glad that I made the choice to just remake it. This is the moment where I am realizing that there is too much batter in the bowl and I am making other accommodations for it. My mom got me all of these big mixing bowls and I'm so grateful for them. I use them so frequently. She came, I don't know, a couple years ago and she said, do you have any big mixing bowls? And I'm like, no. And she said, no kitchen can survive without big mixing bowls. Okay guys, we're back. I remade a whole recipe. I did it with the cane sugar and I did add just a touch of red food coloring just to make it a little bit more pink. I can definitely see now why they wanted me to add it. So I did go ahead and add just a little bit of that. And I reset our pans and I'm praying that it all works out. I had to put it in this big bowl because I did 2 batches and it did not fit in my mixer. I really do not want to have to make this again. So I'm really hoping that this fills all of these pans. And I just now realized that I was going to make 2 of this size, and that might not happen. What I might end up doing, actually what I probably will do, is make my family's chocolate cake recipe, and I'll make a layer of chocolate and a layer of strawberry. Because I don't think that this is enough for another layer of the 9-inch. It might be. Okay, going in the oven. All right, so that's in the oven. I'm gonna clean up a little bit because the kitchen is a disaster and wait for that to cook. Probably take a little bit of a break because I am tired and a little bit stressed out. And we'll be back. All right, here we go again. I am starting to make the strawberry cake filling, which you can see on the paper that I'm holding. I will link this down below as well. This was delicious, and we actually ended up using it in other things. I mixed it into yogurt. I mixed it into the buttercream frosting and actually frosted one of the small butterfly cakes with it. It was so good. And then we ended up mixing it with some buttercream frosting and using some of the leftovers of that mixture to dip fruit in, and everybody really enjoyed that as well. So this strawberry filling recipe was a hit, and I will be keeping this in my back pocket for other recipes as well. It was so good. So I'm just getting all of the ingredients together for that. And it was very simple. I did not use sugar. I used honey. So I did substitute that. And I believe that I just did the exact measurements. I used the same amount of honey that it requires for sugar. And then the lemon juice, and that was it. Oh, and cornstarch. But I did use cornstarch, and I also used tapioca flour or tapioca starch. Because it wasn't really coming together the way that I wanted it to. And I am familiar with tapioca starch through all of the cooking that I've done for allergies, where if you have a corn allergy, cornstarch is not recommended. So I would substitute that with tapioca starch and it would do okay. So this is what it looks like right before it gets all nice and cooked down. I was just stirring it, making sure that it all got incorporated, and then I mashed it to make it so that it's still chunky. I didn't want to put it in the blender. I did not want to puree, but I obviously didn't want the big strawberry chunks either. So I'm just checking on my cakes. At this point, I am protecting these cakes with everything in me because I do not want to have to remake this recipe. I don't even know if I would have remade it. I might have just gone to like Sam's Club and got a cake and done it that way. Here is where I'm adding the cornstarch to the required amount. I believe it called for 1 teaspoon of cornstarch in a little bit of water. And then it tells us to just simmer it for about 20 minutes, stirring occasionally. And that is exactly what I did. Although I did it for much longer than 20 minutes. I don't remember exactly how long it was. It was just on the burner while I was doing a whole bunch of other stuff. And I would just stir it every once in a while. And it ended up to be really good. Here I'm turning out the cakes. Well, there, I'm stirring the strawberry filling. And then I'm going to turn out the cakes onto these cooling racks and let them dry completely. So they dry completely, cool completely. So here it just came out of the oven probably 2 minutes ago. I'm turning it out because I do need that 9-inch pan for another kind of cake. So I'm trying to get it out as quickly as I can. And also trying to keep my cool. Lots of deep breathing and center balancing happening, praying. I'm very glad that I used those parchment rounds. That helped a lot. I feel like the cake came out really easily. Now I got these little flour cupcake tins, cupcake papers at Walmart, but it's not in the normal baking section. It's in like the if you are a professional cake decorator section with all of like the piping bags and the piping tips and stuff like that. So I was really excited when we found these. So were the kids. They were really excited. And it just made it so pretty, as you will see at the end. And people really liked them. As well as the birthday girl really thought that they were pretty fantastic. So here I am preparing my pan for the next cake to go in it. I am making our family's chocolate cake recipe. I say it's our family's. It's just the one that we've made since we were kids. Like this cake recipe, this chocolate cake recipe is the one that my mom made for us on every single one of our birthdays, all of our special occasions. This was the cake that was made and it is delicious. My mom adds a little bit of coffee to bring the more chocolatey flavor to it. I have little ones, so I am not about to give them any more caffeine than what's already in the cake, and even that I had a little bit of anxiety about. So, but if you are, an adult and you would like it to have more of a chocolatey flavor, adding a little bit of coffee in there really helps bring out that chocolatey flavor. So this calls for cold water, so that's why it's in a pitcher. And I will link the recipe for this down below. And it's so easy to make. It comes together really easily, really quickly. And is just so delicious. And it's a very versatile cake. My mom used to make a bunch of different things. You can make trifle with this cake. She makes cupcakes and cakes and loaves. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do with this cake. And it goes with everything. You can dress it up or dress it down. I really enjoy it. My dad and I used to really enjoy it with no icing. So I'm blessed to be like my dad like that. So here, I'm just putting it into the pan. Very glad to be finishing this process, putting it into the oven, and then I'm going to use these beautiful little like sunflower-esque cupcake cups, baking cups. These were so pretty when they were done. They looked like little sunflowers, which I absolutely love sunflowers, and it just made the table pop. And then the chocolate cake just, oh, it was just wonderful. It was so cute. And all the kids thought that was just the greatest thing. So I'm not filling them all the way up to the top. There's like this little white part at the bottom, and I filled it just up to the rim of that. Some of them I filled it a little bit fuller. It was a little bit of an experiment as to what was going to work. Now the strawberry filling is finally done, and I am putting it into a Tupperware or like a glass storage dish for tomorrow, because this is actually the day before the party. So I'm making all the cakes and all of that before, and then I'm going to decorate them tomorrow. So the cakes that I made before are now all completely cool, and I'm going to wrap them in saran wrap or cling wrap. I don't have any storage containers big enough to store these in, so this was just the best option for me. Checking on my other cake, and it is ready, so I bring it out. And then I'm turning out the chocolate cake, and it was sticking. So I just had to wait just a little bit. It stuck a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. That does happen with this cake sometimes. I wonder if the very original recipe that we used to use calls for the pan to be greased and floured. I think I'm going to try that the next time and see if the breaking can. Look at these. Aren't they so cute? Oh my goodness. I just loved how these turned out. So this is day 2, as you can see. Yes, I am wearing the exact same thing. I did not get very much sleep. And stress sweating is a real thing for me, so I'm just gonna stay in the clothes that I had on the day before and then take a shower right before the party. Otherwise, I would have had to take a whole nother shower. So I had made this buttercream frosting the day before as well, and I had put it into the refrigerator, and it was hard. So I just transferred it into this microwavable bowl and then put it in the microwave for a couple seconds. And I also did not add the heavy cream to the recipe the day before. I did that this day. So on the day that I was decorating it, the day that I was putting it in the piping bag is the day that I actually put the heavy cream into the buttercream, and it worked really well. It was kind of by accident that I did that, but I will probably do that from here out because it gave me the opportunity to make it the texture that I wanted, and it loosened it up a little bit, but also gave me the ability to be able to put the buttercream in the refrigerator. Although the microwave worked really well as well. So here I'm just putting in the biggest like round tip. Sorry, I didn't actually show you any of these tips that I was using. But this is just me crumb coating the cake. And I will, next time I'm doing a layered cake, I will top it. I've been watching some decorating videos on that, and taking the like dome off of the top really helps the bulging that happened to me on this cake later on. Seeing how it's falling off of the cake, I think that is because I did not add enough powdered sugar. I had left the icing just a little bit too soft. So I end up actually correcting that. I added a little bit more powdered sugar to it, but this is just a crumb coating, as well as I'm creating my dams for my filling, because I'm going to put that strawberry filling on the inside. It was delicious. It makes me want to put filling in every cake I make for the rest of time. I also did learn a lot from this experience. This was the first time I've ever put a filling in a cake, and bulging is a real thing. Making these dams nice and thick is a necessity, at least for the amount of filling that I use and the type of filling that I used. I didn't make the outside dam large enough. I would have, if I were to do it again, I would go back and I would do a double layer of the dam. But I'm also going to be cutting this cake in half because it's going to be a butterfly. Here's another instance where cutting it in half cutting the top off would have been a really good idea, because I have that big space along the outside, which made the bulging even worse. But that's why we learn, guys. That's why you just do it and then do research and watch a bunch of decorating videos to see what you can do next time to make it look better. This is the first time that I'm doing this, this cake, this recipe, and so I learned a lot along the way, and it turned out beautiful for someone who has no cake decorating experience really, other than loving to do it and loving to challenge myself to do it, and loving to see the beautiful thing that comes at the end of doing something like this. Like, I really love how beautiful cakes come out when they're decorated. I love watching other people decorate cakes, and has become a bit of a tradition for me to do this for my loved ones. And so that is what this is. And they always get to request the theme, and they request the cake that we do, and then I do my best to deliver it. So here I am doing the base color for the whole cake. So I'm doing, my goal was to do like a really light lavender as a base coating. And so that's what I got. And so I'm just going to put this on top of my crumb coat. And I just did a thin layer because I didn't want, people to have diabetic comas walking out the door from all the icing, as well as I'm trying to preserve the icing because I pretty grossly underestimated the amount of icing that I was going to need in order to ice this whole cake, as well as the other 3 cakes and the cupcakes. So I am trying to do it all with not needing to go back to the store and get more ingredients, as well as at this point, I'm kind of done and ready for it to all come together. And so I did not want to have to stop and make more icing, although I do think that I did after this. I realized that I did not have even nearly enough icing and that I was going to need to make more. So this is my base layer. Now it's time to cut it. And this is the part where I'm stress sweating, guys. Like, no shower would have been good enough for this moment, okay? None. I am just like, how am I going to get this already bit sketchy cake from here to there? And then also, I did not get the big enough cake rounds for this cake. Granted, it ended up being okay, but it was hanging over the edge a little bit. Lesson learned. Next time, get a really big cake pan, like cake board. And here is where my dam gave out. And I'm just like, no, not the dam. Don't do that. I'm like, telling you, stress sweating, no shower. Like, just no, like this was stressful. See, it's just oozing out, and I'm trying to think about, actually I hadn't even realized that it was oozing out. right there. I'm like, no, okay, how do I fix this? Think about all of the baking shows that you've watched. Like, how do they normally fix this? So I just scraped it off and then tried to plug the dam with more icing, more buttercream, and I think that it worked. And then all of a sudden the sun came out and was all really bright, and I realized that I was trying to look into the sun. So I went ahead and closed the curtains. And so you can see right there how the nice like chocolate layer and then the strawberry layer with the filling in between. So now I'm just covering the rest of the cake with that pretty lavender color, which is hard to see in this shot, but it was a really pretty like light lavender color. And I'm noticing with this whole video is that the video doesn't do it justice, that it doesn't do the colors justice. But that's okay. You guys get the general idea. Oh yes, so here I am making more buttercream. And I'm so glad that I did because it was the perfect amount. So here I am measuring it out for the first butterfly decoration, like the first top of the cake, butterfly cake. At this point, I also had put it in the freezer. The whole cake went in the freezer because I just like panic put it in there. And thankfully I did, because now I've watched a couple decorating videos and they talk about how it's really important to put it in the refrigerator or the freezer. And so that's what I did. So this is the first color that's going to be going on for the wings. And it was such a pretty color. Ended up to be really good. So right now the cake is hanging out in the freezer, which was stressful all of itself. At the moment, there's stuff all over the floor. You guys can't see it, but there was stuff all over the floor that I had pulled out of the freezer that didn't need to be in there anyway. And I'm just like, out with you. Anything that doesn't absolutely need to be in the freezer needs to get out so that I have room to put this cake. And then I cleaned it up later. So when I was looking for a design for this cake, this looked really simple because obviously sped up, it looks really simple, right? And so all of the videos that I saw were sped up and I'm like, oh, this seems super simple. Like you just, you know, doop, 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 and then spread it out and it just looks so cute and so pretty. It is not that simple. It took much longer than I had anticipated and left time for. So lesson learned on that as well, which is pretty much the theme of this entire video. You guys get to look at something absolutely beautiful and hear me talking about how many lessons I learned through the process. But you know, hey, that's what we are all about here. Changing the colors and then trying to make sure that I didn't waste any while I was changing the colors because I didn't want to have to remake more. It was interesting, but it was beautiful. So I'm just doing this over and over again, and I'm changing the colors, doing kind of like an ombre purple. And then I do a little bit of pink in the middle, and then the dark purple went in for the body of the butterfly. At this point, I'm realizing that I should have put these little stakes in before I put it in the freezer, and I had forgotten, so I did it now, and it worked okay. It would have been better if I'd done it before I put it in the freezer, because then the icing would have completely covered where the little holes were, but that's okay. I did it on this side, I was able to cover it, but on the other side, I spaced and put it in the wrong spot. Nobody noticed them until they cut into it, so it's all good. So here I'm trying to figure out the pink, and the first time I made it like a really bad looking pink, and then that second time I made it too pink, and then this pink was perfect. The closer I got to the middle of the cake, the harder it was to do this with a straight spatula, icing spatula like this. Having a spooned one would have made it a little bit easier, but we figured it out. And here we are making the body, or here I am making the body. The face on this butterfly looked a little terrifying, if I'm being honest, but you know, it's okay. I am now just doing little flowers, little flower stars around the bottom just to make it look a little bit cleaner and more complete. And it ended up being really pretty. And I also, as I was going, I was cleaning up my cake board as well. So I would wipe any of the icing that fell off, I was wiping off as well. I was contemplating doing this for the entire side of the cake, but quickly decided against it because I didn't have enough buttercream to do that and do everything, you know, all the other cakes. Now making the icing for the eyes and the mouth. I think if I were to do it again, I wouldn't put the white. It made it look a little googly eyes. I wasn't a fan of that. But I actually ended up pushing them down a little bit, which made them a little less terrifying. And then I tried to give her some eyelashes, which, you know, she's just pretty in her own way. We'll just leave it at that. And this was before I put on her antennae. And there she is with her antennae. So cute. The end product is so pretty. Like, I loved the scalloped wing texture and the colors. It was so pretty. The sides of the cake could have looked a little bit better, but that's just me being hard on myself. And now onto the cupcakes. I loved how these cupcakes looked with nothing in them, but I know that most people don't like cupcakes with no icing, so I was like, well, I gotta put something on there. Quickly decided that it looked terrible and moved on to the purple ones because I knew the purple ones would have yellow centers, but the other ones, I did not like how it looked. And at this point, it is so close to the time of the party starting, and the kitchen is still a mess. And I had some other things that I needed to finish up, like making the lemonade and all of that. And so I am just getting what I can done where I can. And this is how the table looked, all finished. And now I wish that you could have been there to see it because video does not do it justice. I wasn't able to get the lighting right to where it really picked up all of the luminescence of the little butterflies and the details. It just didn't look the same in the video, but you guys get a good idea of how it looked. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video.